This is the Beesotted Pride of West London podcast, and we're coming to you pretty much straight after the defeat of Brighton at the Amex Stadium in Brighton. We're actually here in our Brighton studio. If you listen to it in the background, if you can't hear it amongst all the people chatting, which is thrown in there a little bit, we've got the sea in the background. We're actually, the studio is actually overlooking the sea here. This is not a virtual joint at all. This is a real joint. And after last night's game, to be quite honest with you, we needed a little bit of relaxation. We needed something to actually calm us down, because what was going on the pitch, and it's not the players' fault, wasn't really the one for us. I'm sitting here with Laney in our seaside studio. Laney, how are you?
Well, good. What an incredible view this place is. Yeah, it's stunning. Just sitting here looking at the waves crashing. It's a bit like our season at the moment. The waves came crashing down on us last night. It was with the injuries and it's becoming a little bit of concern. Luckily, we've got a lot of points in the bag. Not a lot, but we've got, we're not in a relegation dogfight or anything like that. But yeah, it's a bit of a concern as we're facing another tricky away day at Sheffield United at the weekend. But yeah, an interesting one last night, Bill.
Very interesting. Like I said to you, we've got plenty to talk to on this podcast. Really difficult doing sort of podcasts when they whack a game right in the middle. Whack a day here on a Wednesday. So we got a game on the Wednesday and then trying to do a podcast as well. If you could check out as well, Pride of West London, we put out a fairly short post-match podcast after the game. And like I said to you, that's out there. You'll hear what some of the fans have said of that on this podcast a little bit later as well. But what else we got on the show? On the show today, we have got, what have we got? We've got the fans after the game as well. We've also got the Gowler Bees breakdown, giving us a statistical and a tactical lowdown on the Luton game, and also looking forward to the game at the weekend against the Blades. Also, we've got JB with lots more facts and funk. And also, just to get the Blades view, we got Ian Rands from Four Blades in a Pub podcast. Okay, so Four Blades in the Pub. We don't actually quite go down to the pub. I know, we know that feeling actually. Lockdown killed that one as well. So Four Blades, not in a pub podcast. Got Ian Rands from there, actually going to give us a lowdown on the Blades. But tell you what, the conversation in the pub last night, actually, 4Bs in the pub last night. A bit of a late night as well last night, which is all good in Brighton. Like, it's Tuesday night in Brighton, you could always find somewhere to go. Or Wednesday night, that's right. It should have been a Tuesday, but they moved it to a Wednesday for Amazon. Always find somewhere to go. So we found somewhere to go. And like I said, 4Bs in a pub. And we weren't even talking about Brentford, because we were just saying, look, we've got so many players out, it's just the way it goes. But we were actually talking about Nottingham Forest, quite surprisingly, because we were talking about Steve Cooper. And some of the fans going, well, why? This is a Brentford podcast. Why are they talking about Cooper? It's just, again, it's a point of football discussion. Steve Cooper was at Swansea when we had the little beef with them over the 2 playoff games that we had with them. We ended up winning in the end, of course, because we actually got to the Premier League and they didn't. Steve Cooper then ended up going to Nottingham Forest. Some people will say a bit of a basket case of a club, because they had so many managers that they sacked and bringing in so many players in. Again, that's a point of opinion as to whether they are or whether or not that's the right tactic to use. But anyway, that's been called. And he went to Forest, and by all means, he's actually kind of saved them. They were bottom of the Championship when he took over from them. Had hardly any points, and then he rescued them, got them up the league, and then got them through and promoted via the playoffs. And the fans absolutely love him. I'm not being funny. I'm telling you the stage. I've got loads of Forest mates, and you cannot say a bad word against Cooper. So when we turn around and say, as Brentford, we hate Cooper, I mean, it's like you've insulted their mother, or their father. You know what I'm saying? It is actually quite bad there. So now we've got a scenario where Cooper's had a pretty bad run. He lost again. I think it was last night they lost the game. They lost again to Fulham. Okay, and they lost again to Fulham, and quite badly to Fulham as well. The Forest fans are giving him a bligh. They're just saying, listen, Cooper, this is the way it goes. You saved us. We love you. But apparently he came over. He sort of applauded the fans. He said something in the post-match podcast saying, look, I don't know, whatever the club wants to do, that's up to them. I don't control that. And all the Forest fans are resigned to Cooper leaving, and they're devastated.
Well, it's always good. It's always interesting, rather, to compare ourselves to the clubs that we were competing with to get out of the Championship a few years ago. So it's almost 4 years ago. You think about it. We sort of become used to our surroundings now. But yeah, just comparing Brentford, the way we do our business, the way we recruit, how much we spend on players, and what brings success and what doesn't bring success at other clubs. And as an outsider looking in at Forest, you can see how much money and how the churn of players, and it's just not working. And you're right to point out when Cooper was at Swansea, there was obviously some playoff beef. We beat them to get promoted into the Premier League, and there's obviously the playoff matches the season before, when we lost to Fulham ultimately at Wembley in lockdown. So yeah, it is, and the club's ownership model. There's obviously talk this week as well in some quarters about Matthew Benham being open to outside funding, selling part of the club. How big a news item that is, or how seriously or how much is the club's being touted or not, or it's just a question that he was asked in a recent BU interview, and he's mentioned that in the past. But comparing Brentford and as I said, our ownership structure, and then Forest and their ownership structure, and how they're almost like a dictatorship, and we seem to be much more stable. When there's risk or there's talk of that changing, that's concerning as well. So yeah, you have to keep an eye on what's going on at clubs our size, or clubs that have been through a similar trajectory to us, to kind of just see what else is going on. It's good to have one eye elsewhere, as well as kind of just concentrating on your own team as well.
Yeah, and sources are saying about Cooper, because like I said, a lot of people, a lot of Forest fans, overnight, when we came back here after staying out rather late, actually, we watched Match of the Day about 2 o'clock in the morning. Then we were sort of flipping through and seeing what people were saying online, and the Forest fans had basically said he's gone. We could see that was his last farewell. But the word on the street is from sources up there is that he's going to be given at least one more game to try and save his position, which means we're sort of saying that maybe he's going to be given till Christmas, maybe, or maybe just after Christmas. They've got a sort of a strong run of games, between now and then. Not particularly the easiest run of games that they've got. They've got Wolves away, then they've got Tottenham at home, then they've got Bournemouth away, and then they've got Newcastle at home, and they've got Man United at home between now and the end of the year, and then it's the FA Cup, which I don't know what's happened to the FA Cup. I don't know what's happened to them there. I don't know if they're playing or if they're playing anybody, to be honest with you, even though in the third round, I don't know if the team they're going to play got disqualified. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, that's not the point. So we shall see. For us, just quickly, we're going to talk about this point as well that Laney just mentioned there. Matthew Benham, because a lot of people actually come up to us and asked us the question, is Matthew Benham selling the club? We're going to say this as well, that we haven't done we haven't got into asking the question as we have done back in the past, because it's one of those ones where we believe, again, it's when somebody takes an interview and then you're not saying you make more out of it than you can do, but it's one of them situations where it's an interview that happened, and you can construe the words whichever way that you want to, I believe. What we do know is, and we've said this before, and the people that have been listening to us for, to the podcast for years, when Brentford were in the Championship, we had a very firm plan that we wanted to get to the Premier League. That plan was kind of, one of the elements of that plan at one stage, that we decided to shut down our academy, because our academy was taking us up a lot of money, and a lot of our players, like I said to you, were going elsewhere after we spent a lot of money on them, and it was felt that we needed to focus the money from the academy into the Premier League, because we only had a finite amount of money, and I think after we had failed, we got close but no cigar, particular years. Matthew Benham, and this is for a fact, he said he was open to bids, and I think he's always open to bids, for people to come and say, actually, we would like to invest in your club. At that stage, we felt that maybe if we were competing against these other, inverted commas, bigger clubs like Derby County and at the time Sheffield Wednesday, who were putting truckloads of money into trying to get up, they're cheating at the time as well, but that's a separate issue, and we had to try and compete against that. We were finding it maybe quite hard because we were trying to do it the natural way, we were trying to do it our way. Matthew Benham said,
and building a stadium at the same time without Premiership money.
That's right. So we were trying to do all these things, and Matthew Benham said, look, I'm open to bids. And there was at one stage where we actually did entertain. And again, this is not sort of going a top secret story, but we were entertaining a group out of China. I can't remember the guy's name. Was his name Chen? Possibly. Again, Ben Bland as well, who was one of our Beesotted crew, who actually lived out in Hong Kong at the time. He actually did a little bit of work on this, and he knows very much about that whole deal. He was working for the Financial Times at the time, and he knew quite a lot about the deal. And so he was speaking from the Chinese side of things. So we were kind of getting information from that side of the game as well as kind of getting information from our side. And what happens is that Benham said, look, I'm open to the deal. They had talks and they had sort of kind of chats about what they do, and there was money that we'd said that we'd offer. We'd offer a percentage of our club, which was I think less than 50%, and I think the figure might have been around 30 million or so. Okay, and the deal kind of was looking about it, and then it kind of went a bit cold, and then they went off and they ended up and went and bought Barnsley. So the same owners went and bought Barnsley, and they got 100% of the club, I believe, for about 5 million. So the difference in the deal was just quite massive. So they could have bought into Brentford, possibly, if the deal was done, but they decided to buy into Barnsley. But now we've got the situation where we've actually got up, and now the club's thriving. It's doing really well. So obviously it's worth a lot more than the sort of 30 million for the 50%, that was offered at the time. So it's quite interesting.
And the chat, in the pub last night and before the game was obviously we were talking about this, and we were obviously it's 2 and 2. Does 2 and 2 equal 10? Is David Beckham interested in investing in Brentford? That's kind of where we were thinking. Obviously there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that that's the story, but David Beckham has been watching his son play in the Brentford B team. He's been spending a lot of time in our part of West London. He's been down at Staines numerous times, at Wheatsheaf Lane, at Wheatsheaf Stadium, watching his son play, and you can't be around teams like Brentford, a club like Brentford, for too long without falling in love with it. And that might sound a bit overly romantic, but
you're romantic, Laney.
Yes, I am. But we all know there's something truly special about our club and how we've achieved success. And you see, Gary Neville and Carragher bouncing around, after those brilliant early Premiership wins, them commenting about the atmosphere at the G-Tech, and then people kind of sharing in the good vibe about our success. It's been derailed is the wrong word, but it's an injury crisis kind of at the moment. So this season's going to be probably a little bit of a write-off, but overall, the Brentford story is one where outsiders kind of are captivated by, and that's why the Brentford Revolution book needed to be written, and people are fascinated. Other clubs are fascinated about how we achieve success. Beckham, I'm sure, is interested because he's the kind of character. He's at the stage of his life now. He won't just go along and watch. He wants to be part of. He's got time to fill. He's got business ambitions to achieve. So, it was similar to when we mentioned about Christian Eriksen being available. It started off just about it all makes sense. Why wouldn't they? And in the end, that happened. So, obviously Matthew Benham has also sold FC Midtjylland, who he transformed into a tiny little Danish outfit, into title winners in Denmark, and then Champions League qualification, Europa League and Europa Conference qualification. European football's become an annual event now for FC Midtjylland, and he's just sold the club to the richest man in Denmark. Now, is there conversations happening there as well? So there's before we start worrying about being sold to Saudis and being sold to Chinese outfits and our club being changed forever, perhaps hopefully, if there is a new revenue stream that comes in, it's some, it's from a source similar to one of those two.
Yeah, and that's about. I think that's the balance up that we talked about last night. I mean, the Beckham thing was merely, like I said to you, it was just merely a chat that we had. I mean, obviously, I know a lot about MLS and sort of been delving into the MLS over the years.
But you heard it here first, though.
That's right. We did the MLS here, and interestingly, because David Beckham, there's a question as to whether or not how much money David Beckham has actually put into Miami, or whether or not he's been the face that's fronted things up, which has helped to take Miami and MLS to another level, and he's been able to bring in investors himself as opposed to him putting in his own money. So those are all the questions. I know also a lot of people, like I said to you, on the MLS front, who said that David Beckham, basically he had a period where he did just like he just didn't go to any games. Him and Victoria and them lot, they literally just weren't even around. They just didn't do the Miami thing. But all of a sudden, when Messi's popped up again, he's back in the frame, and he's like going to all the Miami games again, unsurprisingly. So like I said to you, but then afterwards, you can't do every single game, because if you're down to Wheatsheep Lane in Staines half the time, how are you going to be sitting in Miami Beach? I mean, that's a big question, isn't it?
It's a good rumour, though, isn't it? You like that rumour?
Oh, it's lovely, lady.
Yeah.
So like I said to you, there's lots of different possibilities. I think the thing that we sort of discussed, and this is what any Brentford fan would be also fearful about, is once you get somebody else coming in, there's always that fear of change. The club changing, what the club's all about is changing. They start bringing in different people. They start bringing in different rules. They've got different ambitions. Yes, you could see the fact that Brentford have been going out for we were pushing the boat out this summer, going for sort of kind of 30 million, 35 million, even 40 million euro players. Right, we didn't land them as such, but that was a situation, and maybe we're in a scenario to say where we could do one or two things. We can actually do what we do and get £150 million a year, whatever it is, for the next 4 years, and then we can put that money and compete, because we're not going to go and blow the bucket as some teams have done and gambled, like even like the Villas of the world and that. They've blown the money straight away, and Villa can argue we've got away with it. Look at us, we're doing really well. They can either do that, or maybe they'll take the investment now, or say now in the next year or so, and be able to actually kind of go up to that next level a lot quicker. So those are the questions you asked me. But like I said to you, the fear from Brentford fans is that our club is as it is. We like it as it is. It's growing slightly organically. Okay, it's quite fast because we're in the Premier League. But as soon as these kind of things happen, all of a sudden, are things are going to get ugly? Is the club just not going to be like it was before? And is that going to turn off some people from our current fan base?
It's the next step. What is the next step? What's the next step for ambitious club owners and directors of football and managers? So the next step for Brentford is clearly to qualify for Europe. And then we saw back in the summer that some of the players that we were trying to buy, they weren't really going to come to us, because the clubs they were at were already in the Champions League or already in Europa League. So there is a barrier. The calibre of player that we are now sort of shopping for will take us to that next level, that Brighton level, let's call it, where they're a European qualified team that have come up the same route as us. So we do need to then start spending 40 million euro pounds on those kind of players. I mean, it's still their numbers I think are slightly. I balk at them still, because I know our history, and I know where we've come from, and bucket rattling and stuff like that. It just seems odd that we're still talking about that kind of money and those kind of players and the word Brentford in the same sentence. But that's where we are, and if we want to be sustainable here, and we want to be successful, and we have to match the ambitions of the people that have made that success possible, then that's where they want to be shopping next. And we probably do have to qualify for Europe. It's not going to happen this year, I can't see, unless it's some sort of miracle, because we just haven't got the depth of squad and the injuries that keep mounting, as we've already mentioned. So it's very much about next year. And although we're getting 150 million a year in from the the TV and the Sky and the world rights packages, that's only 3 players, and maybe that's not enough. And maybe we've been so good with our FFP the last few years. Maybe we're able to go out on a bit of a spending spree within our rules. So I'm nervous, because, as you rightly say, change change is sometimes inevitable, but change is also worrying. I'm obviously concerned that our club could change, but it has already. We just have to make sure and trust in the people that have done what they've done and taken us to this level, continue to do it in a similar style, in an intelligent and it's a stylish way. It says, the way we treat people, the way we do our business seems to be very different to a lot of clubs, and long may that continue.
Yeah, and just the last point I want to say on this as well, and the irony about this is when we're talking about when we're buying players from and competing against, on the European front, say for example, a lot of the teams that we're actually either trying to buy players from or competing against, and I'm not sort of saying this in a biggish way, it's as a team, the way that we play football, we're actually better than a lot of them. And again, I'm doing this on the because it's virtual on the Beckham World League table that he did, where you're matching teams against each other on in Europe and even in the US and everything like that. When you start matching them and they start using stats to see it, you could see kind of where we stand. And this is basically a testament to actually how strong a league we're in. You know what I'm saying? You get down to 8th, 9th and 10th place, teams that finish in 10th place in the UK are a lot stronger than some teams that finish in 3rd place, say for example in the Dutch league, and all these other places who still get into Europe because left FC Michelin, say for example, they're doing very, very well, but how do we match up against them as a team? We're actually probably stronger than them as a team, but they'll get European football because that's the league they play in. You can only you qualify in the league that you play for, what I'm saying? So that's the scenario. So they'll have the chance to get players maybe that we might not be able to get to because they're playing in Europe, because they're playing Champions League, and it makes it harder for us because we're actually playing in a really tough league. So listen, we're not moaning about it, we're just kind of saying these are kind of the struggles that we have. So is Matthew Benham going to sell up Brentford? We've got no idea, but I'd like to think that because he is a Brentford fan, he talked about his son also taking over and being chairman at some stage as well. You'd like to think that if there was any money injection going into the club, he'd do it in a systematic way. He'd do it in a way which actually worked for the best interests for everybody, including himself, including the club, including the fans, and everyone like that. So let's just watch this space as we can, because we've done no delving around, but maybe we might have to start sniffing around a little bit to see kind of what the score is.
Beckham watch.
Yeah, let's go. Little trip to Miami. I mean, like the last one we did Dundalk a few years ago. You know what I'm saying? But we have to go up a level. Let's run up Miami. Yeah.
See you there next week, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we'll just go there just after Christmas. We'll do the Pride of West London from Ocean Drive, like I said. But anyway, listen. Forget about Ocean Drive. We're looking at the ocean here at the moment now, and Laney's going to be going off and driving a little bit later. You like that, actually, Laney? You like those little things?
Very slick.
Thank you very much, actually. I prepared that one earlier. Not at all. But anyway, we're going to go back. We're going to talk about the games at the weekend, the Luton game. We're going to talk about the Brighton game after this break. So, it was almost like, again, we talk about this joy and pain, sunshine and rain. There's no sun. There's lovely sunshine yesterday in Brighton. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the joy and the pain. Saturday was joy. We played Luton Town and we got a right good result against Luton Town. Bit of a banana skin, or potential banana skin as well, because Luton Town are one of those teams who have come here to disrupt in the Premier League. Everyone expects them to get points off them. I mean, they play them like, we're playing Luton, so definite 3 points. But we know when you play teams like Luton, they're actually kind of causes problems. And Luton came first half of the game, and the first half of the game was pretty stink. It's something that, to be quite honest with you, we're not going to really talk about too much because there's not much going on. Luton came with a game plan. They didn't really kind of venture too much into anywhere near our goal because they wanted to come to stifle. And the thing that's probably slightly concerning, you realise how our injuries have affected us. We didn't really have anybody who can unlock that Luton defence, unlock that team, do something which was kind of different to unlock them, and so we kind of just came up against a brick wall. But second half, Maupay got a goal early on in the game, and that just opened everything up, and that was just the floodgates. It was proper floodgate action after that, and we got a 3-1 win. But it was good, and I know Laney is getting probably was a story. Laney wasn't quite there for the game, but he was loyalty bonus points. He was there because he managed to get there. Because you were on the way back from Iceland.
Yeah, I was flying back from Iceland. I went there for a quick trip, and the delays, the fog, and the all the flight chaos meant that I landed late and blah blah. I won't go into the dullness of the logistics of getting out there, but there was time to just make the last 10 minutes, and I did that. Got the tube to Northfields and got an Uber waiting for me, and they dropped me off right near the stadium, so that was all good. So yeah, technically I didn't miss the game, but I kind of missed all the action. I watched all the highlights back, the extended highlights. It looked scrappy, we edged it. They came to defend in the first half, and it was we needed to score the first goal. We did that. We were strong enough to beat teams like Luton, and you hope that we're strong enough to beat Sheffield United on Saturday. But where we're going to come up short with the injuries is when you play better teams. And what the good thing is that we competed with one of the better teams last night. So yeah, I mean it was all about the result, not necessarily the performance when you're playing Luton. But we saw what Luton are capable of, because they pushed again one of the better teams all the way. They almost got a point against Arsenal. David Raya helped them out big time midweek, and Luton should
Liverpool as well
should have held out for the result against Liverpool as well. So yeah. They're capable, and they're a very tricky opponent, and I think they stand a very good chance of surviving. And it's going to be tight, but so as I said, it was all about the result, not necessarily the performance. What we do know is that we are now scraping the barrel, to all word as well. We are reaching for more than fringe players. We're now dipping into the B team now to get players, fit players to fill a competitive starting 11. Fortunately, they look up to the job. They stick to the same system. They have not let us down. They don't look like rabbits in the headlights. People like Miles Peart-Harris came on and got minutes last night. Now, is he a starter? Is he really first team ready? Well, I think we'll have to find out up at Sheffield. So, Yarmouth got more minutes last night and against Luton. So there is a silver lining, because these fringe players are getting Premier League minutes, and we find out whether they can come in, whether they come in and keep us as competitive as we are with our better players. And if they're not, that's when the decisions are made in the summer and in the January transfer window, whether we have to go into the transfer market. Now, with my eyes, I'm suggesting we do need to do that, and I'm sure the powers that be are thinking that as well. So, although it's not ideal to be down to the bare bones, at least it's an experiment to see how strong and how deep the squad is.
Yeah, and so, I mean, just going back to that Luton game just quickly, the strengths, Brentford's strengths, they created a high number of chances relative to our possession. We also effective at creating goal-scoring opportunities from the flanks and also goal-scoring opportunities from set pieces, and we were strong at finishing. We actually didn't have any significant weaknesses. A good game for the Bees, actually. A large quantity of possession in the Luton half. We attacked through the middle and we dominated possession. As for Luton, they were effective at creating goal-scoring opportunities through individual skill and also through long shot situations as well, but they lost the ball often. They favoured long shots. They attacked down their left-hand side. They favoured crossing the ball, and they favoured long balls. Again, if you look at the ratings on WhoScored.com, Neil Maupay, who scored his goal as well, he's very happy that he scored his goal, 8.4. So top rated Neil Maupay as well. Then Ben Mee was 7.9, Shandon Baptiste was 7.4. They had Jacob Brown, who came in, I think as a sub for Luton as well. He came in 7.4, and Christian Norgard was 7.2. Again, annoyingly, he got the yellow card, which put him out against the Brighton game, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which I think affected things quite massively as well. All the shots, Keane Lewis Potter, to be fair, 5 shots he had on goal as well. Mbumo 4 shots, and Maupay 4 shots. Ben Mee, central defender as well, 3 shots, and Wisa had 3 shots as well. And Norgard again shows how much we miss him. The most tackles with 4 tackles in that game as well. Frank the Tank with 3, Yarmouth with 3 as well. So it just kind of shows you where that game is going. We kind of were doing the right things in all the right areas. Tell you what we're going to do as well. We're going to go over to the fans, listen to what they had to say for this Luton game, but also we're going to go to the Brighton game that we went to down at the Amex to hear what the fans had to say about those 2 matches.
Good result, deserved result. kept the ball better than them. Every time they got the ball, they gave it straight back to us. Bit of a hard watch at times. First half, we dominated. I think they scored with probably their only shot on goal up to that point. But as in a typical Brentford style, we did seem to make it a bit harder work than we needed to.
Yeah, they really came with a game plan, and it was to put 10 people back and stop us trying to get through. But I thought we kind of backfired a bit, because once we got the goal, they had to come out, they had to change their game plan completely. And they actually looked quite dangerous. You know, they got a goal, they almost got a second, and they looked dangerous. I don't know if they changed their game plan and actually came at us a bit more, they might have done a bit better. But yeah, we played well. Yeah, I think we needed that little bit of creativity that Jensen gives us, which we were lacking. But we kept at it, and we just, once we got through them, we were fine. You know, 3 goals against a very defensive team. It's pretty good stuff.
You know, I don't want to be a teams like Luton, but actually Luton are a team that Brentford should be beating at our stage that we are where we are in the Premier League. And you know, we got a bit nervy at 3-1, sat back, but yeah, we'll do all right. Luton, I'll be interested to see how they get on for the rest of the season.
I thought we did all right overall. It's one of those games where you could easily not have got 3 points, and we were fairly comfortable other than the 5 minutes after the goal. Flecker didn't make a save, including the one he maybe should have made. But overall, I thought, again, don't forget, same injuries we got today as we had last week. It's still second string.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where you appreciate Frank, right? Not only for the way Thomas plans the game, but clearly there were some words politely shared or not in the dressing room at halftime, and they came out playing much differently, much more aggressively. They looked a lot more cohesive. Even body language-wise, Neil was on the ball rather than flapping his arms at other players. So I think they looked totally different. They turned it quite around. They were on the front foot and making passes, which were missing in the first half for sure.
I thought, for me, man of the match probably Ethan Pinnock, but I thought there was a great performance by Godos, stepping in at the last minute for Aya. I thought he played really, really well. Good to see him get a good run out, and Shandon coming on having a good run out. KLP was fantastic when he came on, running at them, creating the last goal. And I know you can always want something different, but if we'd have had players like Rico running at their back 4, I think we would have absolutely annihilated them. But it is what it is, and it's 3 points, that's all you want.
The goals today, good. Second half performance, great. First half, you know, wasn't so great. It was like an old throwback to the old League One in some respects, but at the end of the day we got the 3 points, and that's all that really matters.
We've just been riddled by injuries. Brian going off removed our main attacking threat, and we did okay, but Brighton were always going to win that, I'm afraid. It's disappointing, but I mean, the team we ended up with there, it looked like a pre-season friendly in the 90th minute after we'd made about 18 substitutions. It was. What can you do? What can you do?
We did all right, considering the players we had out there. You know, they didn't let us down. We've lost by 1 goal again. You know, I don't really know what more that team could do. You know, it's hard. You know, I
think that the team put a lot of effort in, and there's no doubt that they're trying their absolute best at the moment. But we've got so many injuries. It's really, really tough. The kind of good things to take away from that game, where I thought when Damstad came on, he looked like a much kind of different player than what we've seen before. Maybe the player we want him to be. It's good experience for Yarmulke. It's good for Baptiste to get minutes. It's good for Onyeka to get minutes. But yeah, it was a tough game.
I think we accept Brighton are a good side. I know they've got injuries as well, but it's a tough place to come. They're in, you know, not amazing form, so it feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity. But you know, I think that to have 19 points and be 11th with the injuries that we've had this season is a remarkable effort. Obviously, we know the bottom 3 and the bottom 4 with Everton's points deduction means there's quite a bit of a cushion, so we don't really have too much to worry about. I think it's a shame because of the injuries. We could have made a real push for Europe this season, but the injuries combined with Tony suspension just means it was never going to happen. So I still think 11th where we are at the moment is has been a really good effort. So I don't think we can be too disappointed. Hopefully, turn up Sheffield United on Saturday. We get a couple of early goals. I think we should win that. So I don't think you can be too disappointed.
I didn't expect anything more today. I thought we might probably lose, but what a great performance. There's still that bond in the team. There's still togetherness. So Saturday, go forward. Come on, the Bees. We're going to beat Sheffield, yeah?
There you go, the fans from the Luton game. And then looking at the Brighton game, which was, like I said to you, that's the pain, joy and pain. The pain of that Brighton game, and the reason why there's pain is, tell you something, it started off really lovely day, like I said to you, sitting here looking at the sea for half the day, then taking a walk down the beach, meeting Beast characters on the seafront. It was a beautiful sunny day. The sun was out, it was warm, it was almost t-shirt weather. It was, and then having a few beers, meeting up with the Bees before the game, then having the nightmare to try to get to the station, which was bad, but not that bad. We had to get the buses because obviously there's a train strike, and like I said to you, myself, I'm not going to go into the politics. Train strikers, they have to do so. It puts you out for a day or 2 days or 3 days. It was a pain, but we just had to deal with it, and we dealt with it. We got up to the stadium. Let's just put it this way: if that stadium was in the centre of town, it would have been less of a pain. I think the pain is more the fact that stadium is out of town, so it's caused all sorts of problems for all sorts of people. People who are in town, people who are driving in from out of town. It's just caused problems anyway. So there's talks about the Brighton Stadium, and a lot of people are talking about how they hate it, how they don't like it, and you can see why that is.
Yeah, I mean, most people should know the history of Brighton. So for them to have a stadium in Brighton or close to Brighton is all important. So
not everybody knows the history.
So Brighton got into financial shenanigans and difficulties in the late 80s and early 90s, which made them have to close and shut the Goldstone Ground, which was their traditional home in Hove.
Just around the corner from here.
Around the corner from here. So then they were nomadic for a little bit. They had to go and play at Gillingham,
which is miles away.
Which is literally 75, 80 miles away, probably.
That's like Brentford playing in.
It's like Milton Keynes. It's a long way. It was just awful for them. Their fans, they were getting like 1,000, 1,500, and then they came back and played in an athletics stadium, the Withdean,
just up at Preston Park, which is terrible.
Just as you drive into the city from the motorway, it's tucked away in the residential area on the right hand side. So it was grim. And we were talking last night actually. Brighton's not a great place to come and watch football. Brighton's a great place to come. I love the city. It's a great city, but the out of town
stadium
around getting the train to Falmer and then waiting, queuing up for buses and trains back in to then get all the way out again. It's a ball ache. It really is.
And it's interesting because we were talking MLS, but it's actually very American. Yeah. I mean, again, I've been to multiple stadiums in America, watching baseball and watching American football, as you call it, and watching soccer as well. And their experience is very much an out of town experience. You go to the old Joe Robbie Stadium, as it used to be called in Miami. It's called I think the Hard Rock Stadium now, or something like that as well. It used to be the Orange Bowl, which was in the centre of town. Then they moved to out of town. All the way really far, I think 100th Street or something like that. 5 miles away, and you go out there, and so Americans are used to driving, putting their car down, putting the boot up and doing all this kind of stuff, whereas that's not really our culture. Charlotte is one of the few stadiums actually which is bang in the middle of town in America, but it's quite a rarity. So it's kind of that sort of culture breeds a different type of football experience, and I think maybe that's the reason why a lot of Americans, when they come over, they actually like the British football experience, because you go to Chelsea, which is bang right in next to a tube station right in the middle of London, and Brentford is still right in the middle of Brentford, which is accessible, and it gives it more of a community vibe rather than a kind of let's just shove them out somewhere and let them just do them stuff out there.
Just makes you very grateful the way things have worked out for us. There was talk of us going to Western International Market, which would
Hayes, that's in Hayes,
which would have Brentford would have had that out of town kind of vibe. Luckily, we're less than a couple of miles away.
And we also said no to Woking, didn't we?
We did say no to Woking.
No.
Yeah, and Felton was another one that was, mentioned when under the Ron Nose era. So yeah, it makes you grateful that we've got a great stadium that's still in the heart of the town that our club's named after. So, but yeah, I couldn't do that every match. I don't think to go through that, and it made it even worse. As soon as it was a train strike, I think that game should have not been played, but there you go. That's
but Amazon had paid the money,
Amazon paid the money. But yeah, I mean, obviously without injury crisis, it would have suited us not to have played that game as well. But that's a different matter. We had to play the game, and we did all right first half. We started off soaking it up, and there was a couple of dangerous breaks. And we got a penalty from the first one. It happened at the far end of the pitch, so it makes it difficult to kind of see what happened. It looked like Yanel burst through, got taken out just inside the area. There was a big long VAR pause. We obviously inside the stadium, you've got no idea what's going on. I didn't even see a VAR check come up on the scoreboards. And I thought the referee was about to award a free kick outside the area, because you can't see, and you're not the best views to see a Premier League game is on TV, unfortunately. So the ones that didn't go to the game, you probably knew exactly what was going on. But Brian Mbeumo, he dispatched that beautifully. It looked like a little toe poke into the bottom left-hand corner, and he put us one up. The lead didn't last very long, and then that Gross scored the equaliser, very, very well taken goal, and he gave it the big one to the away.
That was really weird, wasn't it?
Odd.
That was really weird.
It was a kind of a flat atmosphere all the way around the ground. Really, it was difficult to get songs going, because it's just a wide open away end where you're not all gathered together. But for him to kind of come over and be giving it the shush. And kind of, a bit like Morpay, what he does when he plays Leeds. It was just a bit
unnecessary.
Why is he? What's that about?
Yeah.
So
and talking about the atmosphere as well, just to butt in there as well, Laney, because as you say, the atmosphere was flat. I mean, from Brighton, it was very flat. I mean, there was no singing going on there whatsoever. The Bees fans were trying to sing. I noticed that little bit of beef opened up between the Brighton fans and the Bees fans, as it does, because I think the Bees fans criticised Brighton for basically having a nice stadium with a terrible atmosphere.
Football in the Library.
Football in the Library, which is one of the songs that we were singing as well, and you will sing on our own as well. And then the Brighton fans gave it back by saying, well, you weren't much better, your support was terrible, you didn't even sell out your allocation, which wasn't necessarily true. I can't answer that yes or no, but we had a lot of people that didn't make it into the ground until the second half, because the traffic was so bad, because they had to make it also down to their ground, which is in the middle of nowhere, which causes all sorts of problems. But that's a different story altogether. But yes, there's that beef. But then afterwards, I noticed that it opened up, because we opened the podcast talking about Nottingham Forest. There was previous beef between Brighton and Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks ago, where apparently the Brighton fans are saying, so Brentford fans are telling us that we don't sing enough. But apparently when they went to Forest and they celebrated because they beat them 3-2 at Forest, and the team came over like the Brentford team and started singing and chanting and jumping up and down, and they were celebrating like they won the FA Cup, in a Steve Slade style. And apparently the Forest fans told them they can't celebrate. So apparently the Brighton fans are really confused, because they're not sure whether or not they should celebrate too much, or whether or not they shouldn't celebrate. Listen to the Brentford fans or listen to the Forest fans. I think they want a sort of a bit of they want a little bit of an adjudicator to come in to tell them exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of piss taking going on there by the Brighton fans. But yeah, the atmosphere was a bit flat, and it kind of led to a whole kind of flatness just over the evening, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it just felt like it was an inevitability about we were going to probably lose. Once Brian Mbeumo had hobbled off, and I really hope it's not as serious as it looks. He walks off very gingerly, with a physio on either side of him, just to give him some support. So if he's rolled his ankle, just hopefully it's just not ligament damage, and it's something that they can let him rest a week or 2 weeks maybe, and he'll be fit for him. I imagine he wants to go to the African Cup of Nations. For us, missing him for a chunk of January as well is going to be really difficult for us to cope with. But obviously, you've got to hope that the player reaches his ambitions in the game. But getting back to the match, although we'd lost 2-1, I'm looking at the league table, and the teams above us leaves us in 11th. But from the top downwards, Arsenal, they beat us, but we only by a single goal. Liverpool, they beat us by more than a single goal, but it wasn't a 3-0 game. We pushed them all the way. Not played Villa, not played Man City, taken a point against Spurs, should have taken a point or won against Man United. They only beat us by a goal. Newcastle only beat us by 1 goal. Brighton only beat us by 1 goal. And then West Ham we beat, Chelsea we beat, and then it's us. So we're even with the
patchwork.
The patchwork, yeah, we're still competing really strongly against the best teams in this division, and that's we ought to take a lot of gratitude from that and a lot of credit for that, and but it does bode well.
Yes, it does. Just quickly, just coming back to this game, Brighton's their strengths, they were effective at creating goal scoring opportunities from set pieces. Their weaknesses, they gave away a lot of free kicks around the box and also committed a large number of individual errors. They had a large quantity of possession in our half and attacked down the left hand side. For Brentford, we stole the ball from them quite a lot, and they said that actually we didn't have any significant weaknesses, they said, in that game. We favoured long balls as well. The top performers of that game in a sort of comparison to the Luton game, this one, they were all Brighton. You know, Jack Hinchelwood, who annoyingly scored their goal, their first goal, and also cleared the ball off the line as well. The second goal, the winning goal as well. The goal of the line. So he got 8.3 as well. He's actually, I think he's the son of the Worthing manager. And again, we've got sort of Worthing Bees. We were out with them yesterday as well, from a part of the South Coast Bees posse as well. So I've been down to Worthing down with them, and I've seen Worthing play football. And they play some very, very good football down at Worthing as well. And I've been down there, like I said, quite a few times. I saw them when they were in the Isthmian League, and when they were in there, and I said to them, this team, they're going to go out, and they smashed that league that season, and they went up to the Conference South the following season, and they got to the playoffs as well. They're playing some great football down there, and their manager plays some great football, and obviously he's produced a son who obviously plays some good football as well.
His mum might have had something to do with it.
Yes, so he does. And there's Mitoma, Grove, Adinga, and Julio, all the top players as well. As opposed to the Luton game, where we had 27 shots and Luton had 7. Here in this game, Brighton had 18 shots, we had 8 shots as well. We're going to go to the Bees breakdown in a minute, and he's going to give you more of a tactical and statistical lowdown. But that game, in effect, it's kind of, we did what we had to do, but we pretty much ran out of steam.
Quick one. This isn't a dig at Flecken, but it doesn't give me the impression that it's going to take something truly special to beat him. Like, he does seem flat-footed a lot, and I don't know. He doesn't impose. He made a couple of really good saves, and credit where credit's due. His distribution was decent at times last night, but as I said, some goalies I look at and you think it's going to take something truly special to beat them, and I'm not sure his positioning and the way he sets off and he dives at times. He just seems to be static, and if you place the ball either side of him more than a pace away, it seems to find the bottom corner of the net. I'm not sure how springy he is, but again, he didn't do anything wrong. I can't really point the finger at him for any of the goals, last night, or the goal he conceded against Luton, or necessarily the ones that he conceded against Liverpool. But he doesn't look unbeatable at all.
No, and talk about stats wise as well, because there's always been a lot of, listen, we're not digging him out, but listen, we've got to discuss these things, and the question marks were there as to somebody was saying, will he keep a clean sheet? I mean, he's kept a few clean sheets. Will he make a save? I think it's there's certain saves which you expect to keep to save, and they don't, because at the end of the day, yes, he made also some great saves, but that's his job. He has to make saves. Now, when it comes to stats, listen, again, at Beesotted, we do the stats thing. Okay, we've got, like I said, your Bees breakdown coming and chatting in a little bit about the stats and facts, but we also look at stats of the players, right, and they're doing as well. So the stats on Flecken. Basically, as the goalkeeper, he is, I think, the second or the lowest ranking keeper in the Premier League when it comes to shot stopping, goalkeeping. So he has let in on an expected goal sort of ratio, sort of 3 more goals than he's expected to. Okay, and he's at the bottom of the league. Okay, him and also it's the Brighton keeper Steele as well. So they're both at the bottom with roughly about 3 goals more than they should have done. The top of the league, ironically, is actually the Luton keeper, who has actually sort of saved 6 more goals than he's expected to as well. So he's kind of keeping them in the game, but we're at the opposite end of that. So we can't let him through goals. So like I said to you, I think there's question marks around there, and a lot of people are saying, it's fair play. The club are backing him, and they're playing him the whole time, and maybe it's because at the moment now, we are kind of a mid-table club, and those 3 goals, if that goes throughout the whole season, they don't feel it's going to affect our league position as such. So you don't throw a person on the bus, but you just give them as much experience as possible. But it is a little bit worrying.
It's we have to raise those concerns and what we see with our own eyes. It's important. He will be given time. He's just in his first season. He's come over from a different league. It's a different way of playing. I'm sure he'll come good, but it's something that we on a Brentford podcast should be talking about.
And just one final thing, we just going to talk about that. Obviously, we had injuries, but when Brian Mbeumo came off, it was like, oh god, here we go, here's another one. There's actually a team being published as a team of basically Brentford injured and suspended players as well. Okay, from that Brighton game. So we've got Ellery Balcom. Okay. On the right wing, we got on the right back, we got Aaron Hickey. On the left back, we got Rico Henry. Centre backs, we got Collins, and we got Aya as well. At CDM, we got Norgard. Then we got De Silva and Jensen doing the little pivot in there as well. Then we got Brian Mbeumo on the right, Chardon on the left, and Ivan Toney in the middle. So basically, these are the players that are out. They've obviously formed their own team, which is actually a pretty bloody good team, that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they're surviving the Premier League as well. Yeah.
and the rest, so that's the players that are out. So that's kind of what we're up against. But anyway, listen, we're going to go over to the Gowler, the Bees Breakdown Posse. Okay, and we're going to talk to the Bees Breakdown Posse. Is going to give us the lowdown on the Luton game at the weekend, and then look forward to the Sheffield United game.
Hey, this is Jacob Gowler with Bees Breakdown. So for that Luton review, Brentford had a dominating performance, and they ended with their second highest XG on the season at 3.5, while also holding the most possession at 67%. The Bees also allowed the lowest expected goals against at 0.2, so Luton really didn't create that much going forward. They only recorded their first shot in the 62nd minute, and for much of the match they were just dropping into that low block. They ended with 30 passes per defensive action, or PPDA, which just shows that Luton rarely applied pressure. And Brentford, on the other hand, they recorded their lowest PPDA of the season at 4.86, which just shows that Brentford's counter pressure was very effective. Alright, so now for that Sheffield preview. They're currently last in the Premier League, and the underlying numbers suggest it's a fair placement. They've only created 10.8 XG, which is the lowest for any Premier League team, while allowing 30.8 expected goals against, and they're even massively underperforming that by actually conceding 39 goals. Similar to Luton, they're allowing high percentage chances, and they have one of the worst save percentages in the Premier League, which just leads to them not recording a clean sheet so far this season. They're a very direct team, and they've struggled to create chances going forward. They have the fewest goals, shots on target, and they have the longest average shot distance. So expect some similar tactics to the Luton match, where Thomas Frank's just going to try to stretch their width by attacking the wings and holding much more possession. Brentford will want to score earlier than they did against Luton, just to open the match up a bit and create more chances.
There you go, to Gowler giving us the lowdown. Tell you what though, just to bring things up a little bit, we're going to go to JB to give us some facts and some funk. So we've got some stats and statistics and then facts and funk all thrown in at one time. Here you go, JB.
Are you ready for this? I told you it was coming. Woo! JB, and he's ready to sock it to you one time. Get it!
Hello, Jonathan Burchill back again. Brighton away remains one of those Premier League fixtures we've yet to get maximum points from, with just 1 out of a possible 9. They've never been fruitful visits, as in total we've made 34 league trips to Brighton, losing over 60% of them. Against Luton, we scored 3 goals in the second half, having scored none in the first. That's the first time in a league game that that's happened with fans at the G-Tech. Although we went from 0-0 at half-time to beating Huddersfield 3-0 in September 2020, it was behind closed doors. The last home game with fans was the memorable 3-2 against Millwall in October 2019 at Griffin Park. The Luton game was Brentford's 300th in the top tier, 210 under Harry Curtis with 90 under Thomas Frank. Our trip to Sheffield will show us Thomas's 250th game in charge, only our third manager to reach that milestone. Whereas the first 250 for Harry Curtis and Malcolm McDonald were all in the third and fourth tiers, Thomas's have all been in the top 2 tiers. But it's injuries that were again the main topic of conversation this week. Every game this season needs 20 players, 11 starters and 9 subs. So in this era, we need to have the largest squad of players we've ever had. It's therefore tricky to compare numbers of injuries in seasons when squads were very much smaller, as there were fewer or even no subs. The care of players' injuries for the long term was also overlooked in the past in favour of the quick fix, with the magic sponge being the extent of on-field treatment. However, this season we're missing an average of just over 7 players per game, plus of course an average of over 1 for suspensions. So statistically, so far this season, the 7 are more than double the average number of players missing per game from over the last 40 years. And therefore, this season is the worst for injuries in our entire history.
So there you go. Sheffield United. We're going up to the Blades. I like going to the Blades. It's one of them original old school games. Good stadium, good fans, good atmosphere, good place to go out. Looking forward to it, actually. I'm going to steer this as well. We're going to just looking forward to going to it because it's a game where the Blades are, they're down and out. They've got a new manager, so it could be quite an interesting day out, isn't it, Laney?
You know what's going to happen, don't you?
Yeah.
I know. They hemorrhaged 5-0 to Burnley at the weekend. So Higginbottom got the old heave-ho, and Chris Wilder, their sort of manager who's had a successful time at Bramall Lane before. He's back. He took his first game back last night, and they apparently were a lot tighter. They ultimately lost to Liverpool 2-0. But they were playing one of the strongest teams, so there was obviously an uptick in performance yesterday. When you combine them getting a little bit better and us being literally unable to piece together a recognisable strong Brentford team, you kind of fear the worst a little bit. Now I take a point right now, I think, but there's a lot of Brentford fans, rightly as well, expecting to go there and win. I think we're capable of doing that, and we're capable of losing as well. It's literally how our pieced together team approach the game and whether they take the chances. So anything can happen up in South Yorkshireville, and I'm looking forward to the trip, but I'm more wary this week than I was last week about going.
100%. So let's go over to Ian Rands from the 4 Blades in a Pod, or 4 Blades in a Pub podcast. So basically they're doing a podcast, they're in the pub, and they're 4 Blades. He's going to give us the lowdown on the Blades.
Hi there, this is Ian Rands from the 4 Blades in a Pub podcast. Sheffield United season ticket holder for the best part of 35 years. Love to talk about the Blades, and actually had a good chat in the last 12 months with a player that's popular with both Bees and Blades, the legendary Bob Booker, hero of my teenage years watching Sheffield United, and he gave us some great stories and some great times he had both at United and at Griffin Park as well. So coming on to the match between the two teams on Saturday, I mean, how do we feel about it? United promotion last season was probably, some may argue, overdue. I guess the squad we came down with from the Premier League was strong by championship levels, but Slavisa Jokanovic really struggled to get a tune out of them for the initial part of that first season after relegation, and really we expected to bounce back possibly, but when the call came to bring Paul Heckingbottom back into the club, he'd stood in as caretaker, stepping up from the academy when Chris Wilder left, we were pretty underwhelmed, to be honest. I remember going on local radio at the time, and both myself and Dan from the pod were just questioning, is this really ambitious enough? Giving him 5-year contract, the best part of a 5-year contract at the time, was a big ask, I think, of him, and really just smacked of a lack of ambition, really, that we weren't looking more broadly outside of the club as a whole, and it felt like just to revert back to more of the same. He proved us wrong. He proved us massively wrong. We had obviously a push that just fell short in that season he took over, and then last season, there's a lot of history being rewritten over the last few weeks around Paul Heckingbottom. How could he fail? Well, Slavisa Jokanovic was failing with that squad. We had a couple of real talents, and certainly one lifetime talent in Iliman and Jai. And those players, they kind of covered him. They dragged the team through. He didn't really have any tactics. Well, you don't finish 12 points clear of third in the Championship if you don't have tactics and you're reliant on, one or two star named or one in particular star player. So, I think this season's been difficult. He was starting the season, he was given a water pistol in a gunfight, and I think they turned the water supply off. We sold Iliman and Jai and Sander Berger so close to the start of the season, and really we were in the transfer market for the pick of the Championship players. I think Gustavo Hamer was a great signing in most of our eyes, and played so well for Coventry last season, a key part of their near success and near return to the Premier League. And we signed Cameron Archer, who'd had a great loan spells at Preston and most notably Middlesbrough from Aston Villa. And that was probably the limit of our ambitions. We brought some cheaper signings in from overseas, but realistically we weren't shopping at a level that led us to go into the season to have any great expectations. I think the thing that's really disappointed us over the last few weeks, though, has been a lack of fight. I think Sheffield United fans can accept that we might not be good enough in matches, that there are most likely 17, 18 teams better than us, but what we don't accept is a kind of weak-willed dangling of legs in tackles, just a lack of belief, and unfortunately that's what the team had become. We'd come close, we'd kept matches tight against Manchester City at the start of the season, but conceding 2 late goals at Spurs when leading, the 8-0 game against Newcastle, which at the time you put down as an aberration. It was a collapse, but equally Newcastle scored with every chance they had. You'd hoped we'd bounce back a little bit. Results against Wolves at home, a win. Brighton, a point away. Unfortunately, we just masked over the fact that the team were on a downer. And however good a job Paul Heckingbottom had done, and however much I believe and some others believe that the club is got its problems right at the very top through the running of the club into the squad, when things are as they are, there's only one thing you can change, and that's the manager. And sadly, he had to go. The big question is, who would replace him? And I think most of us have known, even from the start of the season, that Chris Wilder was waiting in the wings for that opportunity. It's a very bizarre situation to be in as a fan base, as a club, to see Wilder coming back in. There's mixed opinions. I think when he came out onto the pitch, yes, there was cheering and chanting of his name pre the game against Liverpool, but really it was muted, I think, compared to what people might have expected. And I think that's partly down to the low in which the club is in and the fan base is in as he comes in, but equally with how things ended last time, and perhaps how things were when he returned with Borough as a visiting manager at Bramall Lane. So going into Saturday, what could we look at in the Blades squad? As I mentioned, we've made those signings from the Championship and they fired intermittently in games. Chris Wilder's shown a willingness to change the team around midweek, bringing a youngster, Andre Brooks, in for his first start from the academy into a midfield role. So we might see some things different. Ollie Norwood got dropped as a result of that change in formation as well. And obviously we're missing a couple of those ex-Brentford players. John Egan is out with a long-term injury, captain, or was captain. Jack O'Connell having sadly had to retire from football after that injury that probably prevented him getting an England call-up in that season, sort of interrupted with COVID. So, we've lost some experienced players through injury. We've lost McBurney again through a ridiculously stupid suspension, and we are coming into that match probably in a, I wouldn't say as decimated with injuries as Brentford are, but certainly with a team that is lacking some of its better players, who is finding its feet under a new manager. But there were positive signs, at least against Liverpool, of some fight, some competition, and with a bit of luck on some of the decisions leading up to the goals, where VAR didn't intervene amazingly, and where we had a bit of a better composure in front of goal when we had chances ourselves, it might have been a different result. So what do I think about Brentford? It's difficult. I'm delighted Mbuemo isn't available. My fantasy football team isn't, but I am. And looking down the team, it's hard. I always see Brentford not as a team of star-name players, but a team that's greater than some of its parts, and that's not to dismiss individual players as not being good players, just that the way in which Thomas Frank sets the team up, everyone knows their role, everyone delivers, and you're a good, solid mid-table Premier League side, and all credit to Brentford for that. I do think, however, that going into Saturday we've probably got the best chance of picking up 3 points that we've had for a few games, and that's not disrespecting Brentford, but recognising there are changes, that Wilder will have had more than a day's training with our squad. He'll have learnt a lot from watching the game against Liverpool. I do worry how much we've left out on the pitch against Liverpool midweek, but this could be the start of something for us, and we've got to really get behind the team as a fan base at Bramall Lane and make it intimidating and challenging for the team that Brentford are able to put out. And look, a win, one swallow doesn't make a summer. A win doesn't necessarily make me think we'll do anything to stay up. It's a tough ask, even though we're still in touching distance of the rest of the teams around that bottom five. It's going to take some effort from where we are as a club, with the feeling within the club to do that. Is Chris Wilder the right man? Time will tell. It's either going to be absolutely brilliant this next period, or it could be an absolute show. We'll see. So good. On to Saturday. How will the game pan out and result? I'd love to think we could pick something up. I worry that we probably haven't got the goals in us to do that. I'll go for a score prediction of a 1-1 draw. But yeah, looking forward to welcoming the Bees fans up to Bramall Lane, beautiful downtown Bramall Lane, on Saturday. All the best.
So there you go, Ian Rands, and slightly nervous there because they were basically down and out. Sacked their manager, new manager comes in, they're looking a little bit more organised. Okay, they still lost the game, but they're looking a little bit more organised, and they're coming to play us, who literally, we just sort of pick some names out of the hat as to who's going to actually play for us, because we're all over the place, like I'm saying. So the Blades' strength is protecting the lead, but their weaknesses, how much time you got? Finishing scoring chances, aerial duels, defending corner attacks, avoiding fouling in dangerous areas, keeping possession of the ball, defending against attacks down the wings, defending against long shots, defending against skillful players, defending set pieces are all very weak there as well. Their style of play, long balls, attacking down the right, they like to take long shots, they play with width, they're aggressive, they play in their own half, and they play the offside trap. So that's kind of giving us the vibes as to kind of what we need to do against the Blades. In principle, if we had our regular team, we'd be like, okay, happy days, you know what I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
But we're putting our hands up to say, actually, look, this game could go either way.
Yeah, it can, and if it does go the wrong way, then, obviously there's mitigating circumstances. I'm not gonna, you never want to see your team sort of approach a game thinking, it's damage limitation. I don't think it's that. I think we do go there, and we stand a really good chance of picking up at least one, if not 3 points. So, but they will be fighting for their lives. They will see this game as an opportunity in front of their own fans to get, go ahead and to build on that. Wilder, he's a good man motivator. He's a nice bloke. He knows the city. He's loved at the city, and he stands a better chance, I think, of getting a few points between now and Christmas. I still think they're way too weak to survive. But they're gonna rally a little bit, and I think it's a game that they could rally and actually do well in on Saturday. It's up to us to shove a spanner in the works.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm looking forward to go up to Blades. If a lot of people that may not have been there before, it's a really good away day. Good people up there, good footballing people as well. Really good places to go out and have a drink before and after the game. Really, really good pubs on the way down there as well. I think we're going to be in the beer engine as well, which is cool for Bees fans. It's not an official one, but our Blades mates have actually sussed it out. They said come down. So this is what we're going to do. It's fairly near to Bramall Road as well, which is all good. But there's loads of other places that you can go to in and around them. I know some people like to go to Kelham Island, but there's also loads of pubs in and around just staking their way down there. So we're very much looking forward to seeing Scruffs and seeing Bram and seeing Reg and seeing Mark and all our Blades characters who, unfortunately, we're not going to say this because maybe they may say themselves, but we would like them to be in this division for another season because it's a good away day, but we should see how that goes. But, Laney, just got to ask you one final thing. Score prediction, please.
I'm going to go 1-1 draw.
Okay, I'm going to go 2-0 to the mighty Bees. Yes. So this is all good. So like I said to you,
prefer your score to
yes,
mine.
That's right. Okay, so this is good. So listen, this is the Beesotted Pride of West London podcast coming to you by the sea. Literally, we're sitting there watching the waves breaking in front of us as well. So yeah, so it's made us more zen. It's made us more chilled after that game last night and trying to get to and from the Brighton Stadium, which is not great in the best of times, and it's even worse when there's no trains running. But listen, we're cool. We put that behind us. We're going to Sheffield on Saturday. We're looking forward to a good night out in Sheffield with our Sheffield chums. Looking forward to that. But like I said to you, we've got injuries. Come on, you Bees.
Go on, you Bees. Come on, Brentford.
Bees by the seas. Indeed.